All right, good evening and welcome to the Study Abroad and Gilman Scholarship presentation. We are glad that you can join us. My name is Andrea Morris and I'm the Interim Assistant Director of Study Abroad. And this evening we have Jadalyn Martinez with us. And Jadalyn, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Jadalyn Martinez. I am a Gilman Alumni Ambassador. I also received the Gilman in 2015 to study abroad in Madrid, Spain. And yeah, I have quite a story surrounding that, so I'm excited to share it a little bit later.
Excellent. Thank you very much for being with us. We really appreciate it, Jadalyn. Excellent. And for those of you who know Mandy Stasek from Student Support Services, she'll be joining us in just a little bit. With that, we'll go ahead and get started. I just wanted to give you some preliminary information about study abroad and some of your options. And I just want to have this be kind of the shorter part of the presentation because I really want to be able to dive into the Gilman. With that, I just want to mention some reasons to study abroad. And if some of you have been in classes where we've presented before, perhaps you've seen some of this and some of it's familiar. But some reasons to study abroad are to meet a variety of people that you wouldn't normally meet in Wisconsin. Obviously to learn a foreign language. However, all of our programs offer courses in the English medium. So if you don't know a foreign language, that's completely fine. If you want to go to Germany or Greece or Chile, we'll have courses in the English medium. Of course, if you would like to learn a language, those options are available to you. You can take classes that transfer back to your program. The goal of study abroad is not to add time on, but to enhance your program here at Stout. And there's a formal process you go through, talking with your program director, and if you have a minor, your minor advisor, and the transfer coordinator in the admissions office to figure out exactly how those courses will transfer back. And gain soft skills that employers are looking for. Soft skills are all those other great things that you learn in college that are usually outside of the classroom. So, when you're abroad, you're dealing with a lot of ambiguity, you're meeting a lot of people from other cultures, so you're using your cross-cultural communication skills or developing cross-cultural communication skills, teamwork, a lot of problem solving. Those are all great skills to take into the workplace. And all these things really add to your resume. They're great resume builders. There are proven benefits to study abroad. A lot of research has been done on this recently that we're very excited about. Study abroad increases your GPA after returning. You have an 18% higher graduation rate. Those who study abroad earn 17% higher earnings than those who do not study abroad. So it's essentially kind of an investment in your future. I know it can be, the cost, we'll be talking about costs later. And that's always a factor. And that's why we want to talk about the Gilman tonight. But it's an investment in your future and you can have a bit of a higher earnings when you get into the work world. Students, 90% of students receive, 90% receive their first or second choice placement in a graduate school when they study abroad. And 75% of employers seek a global perspective. And 23 million US jobs are tied to international trade. And fewer than 11% of students take part in study abroad programs. Therefore, you are really distinguishing yourself from your peers. Various study abroad myths, and I kind of mentioned a few of these. But one is I can't afford it. That's completely understandable. And again, the question of cost is something that's very important and we need to address. We do have programs that are essentially about the same cost as going to Stout for a semester. We have a couple exchange programs in South Korea specifically, and a program in Costa Rica. But we'll talk about cost in just a moment. It'll put me behind for graduation. Again, the goal is to enhance your program here at Stout and not necessarily add time on. In fact, some students use it to graduate early or really make sure that they're staying on time for graduation because they'll take extra classes during winter or summer and get those extra credits. I can't study abroad with my major. We actually have programs for all majors here, and on our website, we have where you can search for programs by your major, and everything is pre-sorted for you in terms of the program options. I don't speak the language. As I mentioned earlier, we have, regardless of the country that you're going to, we have courses offered in the English medium. You can study abroad anywhere from 1 week to a year, and many students do, or some students do more than one program if you wish to do something like that. You can go to 40+ different countries and 300 different locations. The different program types that we have are short-term faculty-led programs. So this is if you're wanting to go with a Stout professor and travel with Stout students. Sometimes students opt to go this route because maybe you've never traveled before, haven't been outside Wisconsin. You want to have things organized for you. This is a great way to travel or to study abroad. And about 75% of our students participate in faculty-led programs. Now, if you want to go for a semester or academic year, then an exchange may be possible. Anytime you see an exchange program, that's when you're paying the Stout tuition and fees, which is typically a pretty good deal. There's the National Student Exchange. So if you think that maybe going abroad is not quite for you, then you can also exchange domestically. There's a direct enroll. Essentially, that's when you're paying the other program's fees. And we also have international internships, field experiences, and co-ops. And the last one is virtual. And this is something that came about over the last year during the pandemic. Many of our study abroad providers have developed virtual programs. So you can take courses internationally or participate in international internships. Here's just a few faculty-led programs. I'm not going to spend too much time on this simply because I do want to have us get to the Gilman. But these are the different faculty-led programs, and you can see here the course that's being offered. So, for example, Concept Art in Japan is offering DES or Design 321, and you'll see the term that they're being offered, whether it be summer, spring, or winter 2022. These are our programs. We have other programs going to Cuba and Mexico. And we have another to Belize and Kenya and Sweden. And then we have 2 domestic programs, one going to Hawaii and the other going to New York City. And if you wanted to go abroad for a gen ed course, these could be your options. The biology courses are a science with a lab. So if that's something you need, those could be great options for you. And here's another program right here going to China. All right, so I want to take a look at some of the semester and academic year programs we offer. There's programs in Oceania, so Australia, Fiji, New Zealand, several programs in Europe, and then Asia, which includes Japan and South Korea, and Costa Rica and Ecuador. Now, again, I mentioned earlier, we have programs in 40+ different countries. The additional countries are where our third-party program providers go. Again, our providers are, we can't partner with every university that's out there. So our providers offer, a plethora of options for you. So essentially, if you want to go say to Hungary, one of our providers would have a program that goes to Hungary. So essentially, if there's a place you want to go, more than likely we'll find a way to get you there. And as I mentioned earlier, our virtual programs, you can take courses from faculty around the world, really gain an international perspective. And you can do internships as well. And this will give you international work experience. You can really grow your professional network. It's great skills to put on your resume. So this is something to think about if since we can't send students abroad this summer yet, in summer 2021, if you want to maybe think about doing a virtual course. The National Student Exchange, again, is the domestic exchange. You can select from 150 different schools in the US, as well as the US territories of Puerto Rico, Guam, and the US Virgin Islands of St. Thomas and St. Croix. And there's also a few schools in Canada that you can take advantage of. If you think you wanted to learn Spanish, then going to Puerto Rico is an option, or if you thought you wanted to learn French, or if you already know French, you can go to Quebec, University up in Quebec, Canada. And this is for the semester academic year. The deadline was today. I actually extended it to this Friday. So if you thought you wanted to take advantage of this program for the next academic year, which would be fall 2021 or spring 2022, you have a little bit of time where you could think about doing this, but I would encourage you to get in contact with me right away if this is what you'd like to do. If you have, or if you want to take some Spanish courses, or you're thinking about adding a Spanish minor, here are some options. We have courses short-term as well as semester options in Mexico, Chile, Costa Rica, but this is not everything. If you wanted to go to Uruguay or Spain or Ecuador, we have programs in other Spanish-speaking countries as well. So cost, all of our programs have a cost estimate online, so you know exactly what to expect. We also want to make sure that it's there because you'll want to meet with your financial aid counselor in order to go over all of the costs and make sure that they know that you're studying abroad, and they can take a look at the amount that would go towards your UW-Stout account and what money you might need in your refund to cover additional expenses such as airfare, things like that. And we always encourage you to apply for anything and everything in terms of scholarships and grants that you're eligible for. We have a long list of grants and scholarships on our website, and you can go to uw-stout.studioabroad.com, and that website will be available at the end of the presentation, and toggle to our finances page. You'll find a long list there of things you can look into, see what the criteria is, their deadlines, etc. And then we're going to be talking tonight, obviously, about the Gilman, and these are for the Gilman specifically for students who are Pell Grant eligible. If you thought you wanted to apply, there are a variety of ways you can begin your application or do your research. Our website is uw-stout.studioabroad.com, and you can also talk with an advisor. We can make a virtual appointment. I'll have that information up in a moment. We have how to apply videos on our YouTube channel, and the study abroad application is all online. Definitely connect with us on social media. Instagram is our main one. Instagram and Facebook are really our main ones where we get information out. There's also a great blog and Stout Connect. So if you'd like to make an appointment, a virtual appointment, this is where you can do it through this bit.ly Stout OIE booking website. I'm happy to talk with you, talk about your options. I always tell students, even if maybe you're overwhelmed with the information, or you're not even sure where to begin, or you don't even know what questions to ask, that's okay. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to help you sort it out and kind of get you from here to overseas. So definitely feel free to contact me with any questions you might have. I'm happy to talk with you and sort it all out. And you can email studyabroad@uw-stout.edu with any questions as well. So with that, I would like to hand it over to Jadalyn. And actually, before we pass it over to Jadalyn, does anyone have any questions about the information I just presented? And you're welcome to place questions in the chat box as well. Okay. All right. With that, feel free, if you do think of any questions, feel free to place them in the chat box, and we'll have time at the end to address those as well. With that, Jadalyn, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to start sharing my screen.
Okay.
Are you able to see it?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. So hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. Again, my name is Jadalyn Martinez. I'm a Gilman Alumni Ambassador this academic year. I also work for a Student Support Services program here in Milwaukee. So really excited to talk to you all about this scholarship. So just a little bit of background. So this scholarship is, the funds come from the U.S. Department of State, but it's housed through the IIE, and it's really to promote mutual understanding between the people of the U.S. and the people of other countries by facilitating cultural exchanges like this one. So I just wanted to give you a little background. Gilman's also one of the largest undergraduate study abroad scholarships in the United States. So I think we have about like 30,000 alumni. So it's a really, really great program to be a part of. So just to talk a little bit about the impact the Gilmans had. So 47% were first generation college students who received it. 65%, represented racial or ethnic minority groups. And again, that number of 33,000 U.S. undergraduates of high financial needs, so Pell Grant eligible, and they've gone to over 150 countries, and 1,300 U.S. institutions were represented. So just to talk a little bit more on eligibility, you have to be a U.S. citizen, undergraduate student, a federal Pell Grant recipient, and in a credit-bearing program, and in a country or area with an overall travel advisory level 1 or 2. Now, I want to talk about that a little bit because obviously we know we're in the middle of a pandemic, right? And so travel advisories are a little bit higher in a lot of countries than they usually are. So if the travel advisory is higher because solely because of COVID, that's okay. You can still apply for that country to study there. But if it's the travel advisory is higher for another reason, we do not suggest, nor will the Gilman accept you to apply to that program. So just make sure you're kind of conscious of that and looking up for that travel advisories. And then you have to study at least a minimum of 3 weeks for a 4-year institution like UW-Stout, or 2 weeks, 14 days for a 2-year institution. So I kind of want to switch gears and go into my experience a little bit more. So like I said, I studied abroad on the Gilman in 2015, so a little bit ago, in Madrid, Spain, and it was an incredible experience. And I remember the first sentence of my essay was something like, out of all the opportunities my chosen university would offer me, I would choose the ones that made me most uncomfortable, right? Because I knew that without some uncomfort, without some discomfort, you can't really grow. And so although I think for the most part, studying abroad is the most unique and transformative experience you'll ever have in your life, there is going to be some discomfort, right? You're going to a new place, like you may not know the language or you're learning it. You have to make new friends, right? And so it's going to take a little bit of stepping outside of your comfort zone, but it's going to be so worth it. I mean, I was impacted so much, and I'll talk about why and how, but I did want to go a little bit into my experience. So when I first arrived in Spain, before my study abroad experience, I got the opportunity to stay with a friend in Catalonia, which is a region in Spain. If you know Barcelona, that is the capital of this, I guess you would call it the state in Spain. And so I was there for about a month before my official study abroad started. And it was just so great to kind of get that time to live with locals, travel around the region, try food, see different towns, see different, arts and things like that, to really get like adjusted and make it feel real, like that I was going to be there and that this country was going to be my home for the next 6 months. So that was really, really nice, and it was really fortunate. I met the student in Milwaukee on their exchange, and so I really formed a close bond and ended up staying with the family for about a month before my study abroad. So that was really, really nice. But where I studied abroad was Madrid. So Madrid is the capital of Spain. And these are actually the first 2 photos taken of me in Madrid. So if you see this photo, I look happy, but I was a little overwhelmed. I was like kind of freaked out. I was like, okay, I'm gonna be here for the next 5 months on my own. How am I gonna do this? 'Cause I was a little overwhelmed because the city felt really big. But by the end of the night in this picture, I kind of spread my arms out and like felt like, yes, I got the city. I'm gonna conquer it. I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna learn new things here. I'm going to keep practicing Spanish. It's going to be great. And so by the end of the night, I kind of felt like I got it and that it was going to be great. And it was true. So just talking on my personal experience, I'm a first generation low income student. I got the federal Pell Grant when I was studying. And I think into the mix as a Black woman, I felt like already going to university was hard enough, right? And I didn't have that support at home because I was the first in my family to really go on this journey and go to higher education, right? And get my bachelor's. And so I wanted to study abroad and really was something that I wanted to do before I left. But I felt like maybe I wasn't worthy. Like I already had gotten to university and that was enough. But I want to debunk that. That's a myth. Like you are worthy. We need more first gen low income students going to study abroad and having these experiences. You are worthy of those experiences too. And they just change you and they transform you. And so if anyone's saying that you shouldn't go or this or that, or kind of just believing those myths, please know that they're not true and that you can go for these experiences. So I did want to share that with you all. So I want to continue on a little bit with my experience in Madrid. So again, I was there for 5 months. I ended up doing it my senior year, by the way. So I picked an institution that was an American institution in Madrid so that I could graduate on time. So again, debunking that myth of you're not going to finish on time. If you pick the right program, you totally can. And I did it my senior year. So I went to St. Louis University, a Jesuit institution in Madrid. Had a great time. I did miss home a little bit. I come from a Puerto Rican household, but what I found great about Madrid is it's a very international city. So on one hand, you get that engagement with locals and you get to speak Spanish and practice and learn about the culture of Spain, right, and its traditions. But you also have huge immigrant groups that live in Madrid, and one of them being Dominican, which is they're like cousins to Puerto Ricans. So I found this whole neighborhood with Dominican food, and it just really took me back home and made me feel like even more welcomed in Madrid. I ended up making a very close group of friends who I still talk to this day because a study abroad experience bonds you like no other. So you're really going to meet really interesting people, probably from all over the world. And then another piece of Madrid that I really loved was how cultural it was. There were so many events to go to. Every night I could go somewhere else, right? I had something new to do, and I had never experienced that, right? For my city, that just doesn't happen. It's a very seasonal city, and so to live in a city that had something interesting to do and exciting to do every single day and multiple things to do really just like transformed my view on cities, and I just wanted to stay there forever. It was great. So just to share a little bit of what you can do to get to know your host country a little bit, I think sometimes we can kind of fall into the trap of tourists, right? Because we're only there for so long and you want to see everything at once, but really try and take an opportunity to get to know the people, get to know the people, the language, the culture. And one of the ways I did that was I taught ESL class to a group of local adults. And so this is a picture of some of the students in my class and my co-teacher and one of my best friends. And we taught that class twice a week. And it was so great to just get their perspectives. And we became friends with them. We would go out with them and just have like a coffee and kind of exchange like our experiences and our knowledges from our countries. And it was really, really great. And another way I got to know my host country was I went to those cultural events. So this is a night in Sevilla, I believe, in the south, where I went to go see a flamenco show. I was on a trip organized by the university to go down there. And so we went to a flamenco show, and that was just really, really nice to see that culture and hear that music and the liveliness of it. And my favorite way to get to know a place is through food. And so Spain has a lot of great options to eat. And again, being in Madrid, an international city, you're not going to miss out on any kind of food. You'll find all kinds of food there. So that was just some ways to get to know your host country, just to keep in mind. And also, if you apply for the Gilman, some things you can touch on and how you will integrate yourself into the community while you're studying abroad. So going back into the Gilman, the Gilman gives up to scholarships up to $5,000 in the fall, spring, summer, winter academic year. But remember, as a four-year institution, you do have to go for at least 2 weeks to be granted funding. There's also an additional funding award through the Gilman called the Critical Need Language Award. So this is up to an additional $3,000 plus access to proficiency testing, which is amazing. Not just for your development, but your professional development and your resume. So if you are planning to study abroad and you are planning to study in a country that speaks one of these critical languages and you're applying to the Gilman, please apply. It does require an additional essay to be considered, but it's so worth it, especially if you get granted that funding. Just make sure to look on our website, on the Gilman website, to make sure it's all up to date and that it's still considered a critical need language. So again, we're in the middle of a pandemic and the Gilman has taken that into account, right? So in as well as in person, there's virtual program eligibility. So here are just kind of the eligibility here listed: online courses at institutions based outside of the US, through exchange program or program provider, or virtual faculty-led study abroad programs, internships, intensive language programs, or you may propose an internationally focused virtual program for review. So I'd really consider talking to a study abroad advisor about this if this is an option that you would like to do instead of in person, for example. All right. Another part of the Gilman is the Gilman Mccain Scholarship. So that's $5,000 for child dependents of active duty service members. So it's really similar to the normal Gilman Scholarship, but you have to be a child dependent of active duty service members. So that can be, Air Force, Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Coast Guard. So if you do fall into this eligibility, please apply specifically for the Mccain Scholarship because you can get, again, a solid $5,000 to study abroad. But the rest of the eligibility is the same as the Gilman. All right, so how to apply. So there's an online application. So you're going to put your study abroad program, right? You're going to do your essays, which I'll get into. You're going to send transcripts. They do not have to be official. And then you're going to select your advisors. And then you have your advisor certifications from your study abroad advisor and a financial aid advisor as well. So the essays are really, really important part, crucial to the Gilman because, right, there's a lot of applicants and Gilman staff don't get the chance and opportunity to interview all applicants, right? So your essays are really your time to shine. Think of it as kind of like a personal interview, right? So this is where you're going to share why you want to study abroad. So essay number 1 is your statement of purpose. So again, think of this as a personal interview. Think about your goals, talk about them. Think about what challenges have you faced to study abroad. You can mention that one of the challenges is finances, right? That's obvious, as a Pell Grant recipient, you're going to face barriers financially. And do mention that, but also mention other challenges. I can think of, culturally, coming from a Puerto Rican household, my family was very close, very protective of me, and really they were scared to see me go abroad. And so I kind of talked about that piece, how I kind of walked with my parents through this application process and told them how much it meant for me to study abroad and, what resources were there so that they could keep tabs on me and keep up to date with what was going on in my host country as well. So you can touch on that. What challenges have you faced? And then here's like 5 questions to ask yourself if you've fulfilled while writing the statement of purpose. Do you make a connection between your program and goals? Do you make a connection between your country and goals? And do you share how you'll be academically successful on your program, right? Do you give examples of your experience, skills, and knowledge that you will use to meet the program challenges? And do you address how this abroad experience will impact your future? These are the things that Gilman wants to hear about. I really, truly recommend, I think UW-Stout has a writing center. Please utilize it. Also utilize your study abroad advisors, but the writing centers at universities are amazing. They're there for a reason. They will help you with flow. They will help you write a standout essay, right? Because you really want to grab the reader's attention. So do use those resources as well when you're writing your essays. So the second essay is building mutually understanding essay, right? So how are you going to represent the United States as a citizen diplomat while abroad? You need to answer this. How you contribute to the goal of building mutual understanding? And do you discuss how you look for opportunities to build meaningful relationships and become more culturally engaged, right? And so again, I can think back to my experience when I was abroad, and I said this in my essay. I said that I would volunteer. Community service is very important to me. And so I looked for those opportunities. I became a co-ESL teacher, and I also worked for a pantry, a local pantry near my university that served refugees from Cuba. And that was a great experience for me to really connect to the immigrant population in Madrid. So talk about this in your essay, right? How you will build mutual understanding. And also, there's another essay, I think I forgot the slide. It might be in this essay too, but the third essay should be how you are going to promote the Gilman when you come back. So this is your follow-on service project. So I apologize for missing the slide. But your follow-on service project basically is going to outline what you're going to do when you return from your study abroad. You have about 6 months, I believe, to complete it. And how are you going to promote the Gilman? So with that, I want you to think about the connections you have on campus already. So think of student organizations, think of classes you're really active in, maybe even service that you do in the community, that you can promote the Gilman and get students to apply or to get thinking about international education and study abroad. So again, I'll give you a personal example. Before I went abroad, I was very active in residence life at my university. I was an RA. And so I knew I could use that community that I was a part of to promote the Gilman. So I did. I went to a Spanish-speaking floor at my university and spoke on my experience in Spain and spoke on how the Gilman got me there in the first place. And it was really great. Another way I did it was I reached out to my study abroad office and I asked to present at study abroad fairs, and they actually asked me to be an ambassador for them. And so I went to study abroad fairs. I met and mentored, applicants and also those who are preparing for departure to Spain. So there are many ways that you can promote the Gilman. You just really need to tie it to organizations or service you're already doing so that you already have a foundation in that you can really just come back when you come back from your experience, share what you learned and why to apply to the Gilman and why international education is important. So essay 3 is optional. This again is the Critical Need Language Award. So really you only apply for this if you're going to study a critical need language, preferably in a country that is speaking it, right? So think about, is it predominantly spoken in the country you're going to? How does it relate to your academic or career goals? And then your motivation for improving language proficiency academically, professionally, and personally, right? And I would also say, even if you can't, apply for this additional funding because, for example, like Spanish is not considered a critical need language, it's still important. So mention that if you are going to a country to learn a language, mention that in your other essays. Mention that it's important. Mention that perhaps you won't be able to get to the fluency that you want or desire unless you study abroad and have that opportunity. So make sure to mention language regardless of if you're applying to the critical need, but especially if you are. Okay, so this is just some of the selection criteria Gilman looks at. So they look at the impact of program and destination on the student's academic and career trajectory. They look at the community impact abroad. So again, thinking about that piece of how you're going to be a US diplomat abroad in a sense and represent your country well. And then upon your return home, how are you going to promote the Gilman? How are you going to promote international education? What connections do you have already on campus that you can do that upon your return? They're also going to look at your academic preparedness, right? So those are your transcripts. They're going to look at your diversity of background and experience. And then, again, optional, your commitment to proficiency in a critical need language. But I would argue that they also look at your commitment to language learning if you're going to a country that speaks your second language or one that you're interested in learning. So some important deadlines. So one is upcoming. It's March 2nd at 11:59 Pacific time. Okay, that is the deadline for a broad program starting in May 2021 through April 2022. So I know UW-Stout is not having summer programs, I believe, but this still applies for the fall and then the winter and then spring of 2022. So if you're interested, please apply. The next application cycle will happen in fall, this fall in October. So just some additional tips for you. Create a compelling story that ties your past and present and future to highlight the impact the scholarship will have on you. You know, start the application early. I can't say that enough. It does take time. It does take time. You need to really craft your narrative and craft your essays and make sure you have those important pieces in, like your transcripts and your study abroad program applied and certifications and that with your advisors and financial aid. So please start early if you can and be your truest self and have confidence again that you're worthy of the experience and applying for the scholarship. And I mentioned this before, but for your follow-on service project, think about your community and local schools. Think about how you heard of Gilman and how you could tell others about it. So a perfect example would be speaking to SSS students about this and getting more first-gen students to apply for opportunities abroad. That's a perfect example on how you will do your follow-on service project, okay? And again, if you don't apply, you'll never get it. So please apply. So I want to just highlight some benefits of the scholarship. So the Gilman Scholarship is not a one-time thing. It's a lifetime program, right? You get so many great opportunities, and some of them are highlighted here. So you get non-competitive eligibility to apply for federal positions, which is great because they are tricky to apply for. And so this kind of gives you a leg up to apply for federal positions. We also have the Gilman Scholar Network, which is basically our version of LinkedIn. And that's a great way to meet other alumni all across the country and in the world, right? Those who are still working abroad. And they apply, they post job opportunities there, conference opportunities, everything there. So it's really great network to be a part of. You have the Alumni Ambassador Program that I'm part of. It is volunteer, but I've gained so much exposure and experience and the opportunity to connect with universities all over the United States. And that's been really great for me, and to go to conferences and even facilitate at some conferences as well. And yeah, it's great. It's a great program. You have opportunities for seminars and career workshops. You have the opportunity to expand career possibilities, right? And skill development. Just this last year, excuse me, the Gilman offered little grants to study virtually and to study a course. And so I applied and I received that. So there's just a lot of great benefits to the Gilman if you're awarded that you'll get access to for life. So I did want to mention that. And stay connected with us. We're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. On YouTube, they host Gilman Ask Me Anythings that you can go to. And they're for an hour and they're live, but you can also catch the recording on YouTube. There's also the Gilman Global Experience blog. I've written for it twice, and that shares some great experiences from our alumni. And you can also follow us at the hashtag Gilman Scholarship as well. So I want to say, you know, the Gilman is not the be-all, end-all. There are other scholarships through the U.S. government, like the Critical Language Scholarship Program, the Fulbright, the Boren Scholarship and Fellowship. There are many, so please apply. Please research them and check them out at studyabroad.state.gov. And there's some just contact information. So there's general Gilman contact information, and then there's mine. And I just want to say, really, if you're eligible and you really want to study abroad, please apply. You can do it. Just take some time to craft your narrative and, really think about, why do you want to study abroad? What would receiving the Gilman mean to you, right? I will say that it's meant a lot to me. I think that had I not received the Gilman, I probably wouldn't have, right after graduation, went back to Spain to work there for 3 more years as an English teaching assistant. And then after that, I went to China to teach. And so I really think the Gilman gave me that opportunity and that confidence to believe in myself and to believe I was worthy of those opportunities and to go for them. I also applied for the Fulbright, and although I didn't get it, I think it was a great experience to apply, and I do plan to apply in the future. So I really, really hope that you apply for this program or something similar to go abroad. So thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much, Jadalyn. Your story is very inspiring. So we appreciate that you shared this information.
Yeah, of course.
I really like what you said about you're worthy of it. I think that's a great message to send. So thank you. It's fantastic. And the opportunities you had afterwards too were phenomenal. In the chat box, Mandy, thank you. Mandy stays sick. And Mandy, I'm not sure. I'm sorry if I apologize if I'm not pronouncing your last name correctly. Hi, Mandy. You're on mute. You're on mute. Mandy, you're on mute.
Sorry, I thought I'd hit it. I guess it didn't work. Hello, hi. I'm sitting here watching the presentation with my husband Dan, actually. But yeah, my name is Mandy Stashik. If anyone wants to chat through how you can promote it or how you can, complete that section on your application, I'm happy to help.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Yeah, it'd be fantastic to have someone at Stout who can be another Gilman ambassador. So that would definitely, please tap into Mandy. That'd be fantastic. And there's definitely opportunities that I can help you get connected to within our office as well. There is a question in the chat box. It says, if I study abroad 2 times in my college career, would I be able to get the scholarship for both programs?
So unfortunately, no. You're only awarded once. But if you don't get it, if you apply and you don't receive it, you are eligible to apply again. But it is for one program.
Okay, thank you. And something that I mean, like as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, there are a few semester programs we have out there that are the equivalent cost of approximately the equivalent cost of going to Stout for a semester, or a little bit less. So if you think you wanted to go on a couple of different programs, that's something that you might want to consider taking advantage of.
Yeah, and I would just want to mention the Gilman does accept countries, right? So you can apply for the Gilman and say, I want to go this semester to Chile and Spain, right? You can apply and you can get that funding secured for that semester. So that's an opportunity and possibility as well.
Great, thank you. I really like how you became involved over in Madrid as well through your volunteering. I think those can be such profound experiences. And, I think a lot of times when you're in a study abroad program, at least I remember when I was studying abroad, and I think for other students as well, it's always trying to figure out how you can integrate into that community and meet other students from the country or other international students. And volunteering is a great avenue for that.
Definitely. And
yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to say in a lot of countries, English is very much in demand. And so if you wanted to make extra money, you could tutor, things like that. There are organizations out there, at least in Spain, that would recruit students. But for me personally, it was the first time in my college career I didn't have to work. And I really took that choice and did not. I was like, I will volunteer, but I don't want to work. I really want to focus on the experience. And I did that.
That's great. Do students have any other questions for Jadalyn? This is your time. This is your chance.
Got a shy crowd today. I mean, I think another benefit of study abroad is, did your family support your decision to travel abroad? That's a great question. Not at first. They were not happy. But again, I think it was cultural. We're very close, and they were a little concerned, right? Financially, we had that strain of things, and so I think having a supportive scholarship like Gilman that made us sign up for the travel alerts and made us report to them about if we were going to travel outside of the country as well, so that for safety purposes, and also that connection with my study abroad office, that really put them to ease. And, you know, having my parents come along every step of the way and kind of seeing where I was going to live, who I was going to live with. I stayed with the host family, giving them the contact information, promising to talk to them every week, and also installing all those important apps like Skype and WhatsApp and things like that so that my family could always connect with me was really important. But I think if you don't give that information to your parents, it's not as easy to persuade them that this is a good idea and it is an incredible opportunity. So I think informing your parents is really important to get them to support you. And also the Gilman is very prestigious scholarship. So, you know, if you get it, you can show that to your parents as well, right? So that's kind of the ways I kind of went about it and trying to get them to be okay. And they were okay because I left for almost 4 more years. So
That's fantastic. I encourage students to, oh, there we go. I encourage students to put questions in the chat box. And while you're doing that, I did have another question. Now, you talked a bit about some of the follow-on projects and some suggestions for students to talk with, you know, the study abroad office and student support services and other things that are already in place on campus. And that's the biggest question that we get too, is what are some examples of follow-on projects? Are there any other examples you might be able to provide? Anything that you've heard along the way that was really different or anything?
yeah, I mean, I think you can get pretty creative in this virtual world. I think this virtual world is never going to leave us after this, right? There are always going to opportunities to attend conferences or workshops. So that could be an example, right? Another example is reaching out to your past, like high school, and talking to them. Um, it's really just trying to hit the target group. So think about students entering college, already in college, right? This is who you want to talk to because this is who the scholarship will be for. And so I think if you think about that population and think about the different avenues you could reach them, that would be great to write. But it's better if you have a personal connection. If you already have that connection with the community that you can reach out to, that will show in your essay.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone have any other questions for Jadalyn or for me, either one? Jadalyn, it's my understanding that you do not have to already be accepted into a study abroad program, correct? So if a student wanted to maybe thinking about studying abroad in spring 2022, they just have to have started an application, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And there's also room for some change. So I'll just give my experience. I was originally going to study at a Spanish university, so not an American institution. But when I realized that I just couldn't fulfill my credits and I really couldn't afford to stay an extra semester, I had to transition to another university. So just working with my study abroad advisor and contacting the Gilman, they were understanding, right? It was an exception, but I just want to share that just in case something comes up that you might need to change, or for example, the travel level advisory changes, right? The Gilman will work with you to find a program that's more suitable. To keep that in mind.
Great, thank you. And if we can go back to that in terms of the advisory levels, that needs to be 1 or 2 in order to travel there. And as you mentioned, right now many of them are 3 and 4s because of the pandemic, primarily. So knowing that the deadline for the Gilman is March 2nd, more than likely, overwhelmingly, the travel advisories will not change before March 2nd. Perhaps they might change in late spring, summer, when more of the vaccine is distributed. Can you speak to that a little bit in terms of the Gilman and how that would work?
Yeah, so I can't speak too much in depth because I don't, follow their decision-making process, but we do have Gilman out now, right, in countries that allow. So it really is dependent on the host country, if they're allowing American citizens, for example, to enter, what kind of policies they have, like quarantining, testing, things like that. So we still have people going in person, but there are students who are electing virtual, for example, if they can't go. But I'm so hopeful that things will turn around soon this year, and because it makes me sad that students might miss out on this or think that it's not worth applying for. And I think that it is. I really do.
Great, thank you. Any other questions at all?
So I'm going to type my email in the chat, but feel free to contact me if you have questions. Sometimes a group setting can be intimidating to ask. So you can feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to answer your questions. And even if it's not right now, I'm happy to talk about what it could look like in the future for you, or things like teaching abroad as well, what I did for about 4 years. I'm totally open to that conversation as well.
That's great. Thank you, Jadalyn. Well, I think that will end our session this evening, and we're can stay on for a couple more minutes if people might have questions and like to ask questions after. But I'd really like to thank Jadalyn for being here this evening. This information is incredibly helpful, and for Mandy for promoting this program to your students within Student Support Services. Thank you very much. So I'm going to go ahead and end the recording.